time. How many folks were with me in workshop on Wednesday? Okay, they promised to laugh at my jokes today, so get ready. So my first international speech was about 3 years ago. I went to Buenos Aires with the OLX team, and I was a little nervous. I hopped in the car to the airport to go to this first international opportunity, and I admitted to folks that I was a little bit nervous. And they looked at me and they said, "Don't worry about it. Your English is excellent." So I had a choice between going in bad high school French or English. I will use the English today. I'm going to talk about obsession. So just for a couple of things. How many of you are Netflix members? Good. And how many are paying? Oh, good. A little nervous laughter. I know what that means. So I'd like you to think for a moment about your experience with Netflix. On a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 sucks and 10 is awesome, how likely would you be to recommend Netflix to a friend or a colleague? So think about the number in your head. How many of you are a 9 or a 10? Oh, good. How many are a 7 or an 8? Oh, good. And how many are 0s to 6s? A couple of you. I love you. What could be better about the service? What could make it better for you? He wants more good content, more original content. What could be better about you? You were a detractor in there. Same thing, he wants more and better content. All right, so I just calculated for you the net promoter score. So most of the cases, and actually I noticed it was a little lower here today. It's 80% that give it a 9 or a 10, and then you separate the 10% that I love, these detractors, and the NPS is about 70. And what I really love is chasing after those detractors. And this is one of the things that customer obsession is about. Because customers are always beautifully, wonderfully dissatisfied. Even when they report being happy and business is great. Even when they don't yet know it, customers want something better. And your desire to delight customers will drive you to invent on their behalf. Now, I always find it builds credibility to have a quote from a billionaire up front. Okay? So today, I want to talk a little bit about my early career and this transition that I went through. I was first at Electronic Arts. I was trained to compete. I would put a photo of the product manager that I was competing with on my desk. And I was listening. These were all the letters from capital G gamers saying what they wanted. And I was trained to satisfy folks. And frankly, none of it was particularly helpful to me. A surprise. I was customer focused. A little bit later, my first hit product was called Elmo's Preschool. And 3, 4, and 5-year-old kids liked it a lot, and so did their parents. And then I went on to sell that company. Do you guys recognize this dude? This is Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank. And we went on to take the learning company, and we sold it to Mattel for $3.5 billion, which is how Kevin made his money, right? But something bad happened. A year later, the company got tossed back out, and it lost 90% of its value. And this is when I learned about the job of building long-term, durable, hard-to-copy value. So I'll go forward. This is 2005. This is Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix. Netflix began as a DVD by mail company. You all know what DVDs are, correct? So he had 2 questions. I was interviewing for VP of Product. The first question he asked is, "Hey, Gib, can you delight customers?" And I said, "I built Elmo's Preschool, and I had the good fortune that his kids had played it and loved it too." And then his second question was, "Can you do customer obsession?" Now, luckily, I knew what he meant by that. I had asked him, "Hey, Reed, what's your legacy want to be?" And he didn't say to build a streaming industry. He said, this notion of customer obsession. I'm just a geeky engineer, Gib. I'm not like Steve Jobs. I can't guess the future. I can't understand people's tastes. But if we can create a system where we can test everything, that'll give us real insight about what customers value and what they don't. So to understand my career, I go back and forth between education and entertainment. I was at Netflix from 2005, and then in 2010, I went on to my next startup, which is Chegg. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's a textbook rental company, and it now does homework help. And took that company public. I'm a teacher now. That's what I do, and today I'm teaching outside the classroom, which I love. So the journey here for me was from this world of customer focus, where I was trained to satisfy customers, to listen to them, and to compete. It was a good world. But at Netflix, I went into this different world, which is about customer obsession, about delighting customers, about experimenting in order to invent a better future for all of you. And that has made all the difference for me in my career. Now, there's 3 chapters to this talk. The first, I'm going to talk about something called the DHM model. And the second, I'm going to take you on a consumer science journey to talk about how Netflix became highly personalized, to help connect you with movies that we hoped you'd love. And then the third, I have a current case from today, and Netflix needs your help. And the question is, at the end of the free trial, your 1-month free trial, should they send a reminder to all of you? And that's going to apply some of these theories. So DHM, the way that I define the product leader's job is simple. The job is hard, but the definition is simple. Your job is to delight customers in these hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. And margin-enhancing is just a simple way of saying to make money so that you can have profits, so you can use it to get more original content for those detractors, for instance, who I still love. So here's the model. And what I want to do is share some of the complexity in this model. So I know how to delight everyone in the room here. If Netflix chopped its price in half today and gave you the same service, you would be delighted. But Netflix wouldn't have the profits it needs to get you more of the original content that you like. And there's an inherent balancing act between delight and margin. And I want to share one of the first A/B tests that we did in the era of DVD by mail. And we had a problem. A movie would come out in a theater, and 3 months later, it would be available on the DVD. And at that moment in time, everybody wanted the new release DVD. And we were a punk startup. We thought we couldn't afford to get it. And so if you asked back then what customers wanted, if you talked to them in a survey, they'd say, get me my new release DVD faster. If you talk to them in focus groups and qualitative, they'd say, gosh, I want new release disc quicker. And if you looked at the customer service dispositioning data, they were all saying, we want our new release DVDs faster. So we did a A/B test. At that time, we were about 1 million customers. Today, it's 160 million. Things have worked out nicely. But for about 10,000 customers, we created an experience, the perfect new release delivery. If you were in that test cell, you got your new release DVD the next day in the mail. This was the test. I'm going to read the room. Now, the way that we measure delight is by retention. So at the beginning of the sucky startup, about 10% canceled every month. Today, it's about 2%. 2% cancel, largely because they don't have money in their account, or maybe they shouldn't be binge watching during the summer. Maybe they should be outside. So here's the question. In this test cell, do you think that it will change behavior? Will it change the degree to which people cancel? So how many people believe that we will see a change in this A/B test? A few youthful enthusiasts. And how many people believe there will be no change? And many lost control of their arms. Okay? Most of you are saying, Gib, it's going to be a wash. We will not see a change here. And that's the expected result, frankly, in most A/B tests. Well, in this case, you're all right. There was a measurable change, but it wasn't very big. We went from 4.5% canceling each month to 4.45. And I want to share the math here about how to think about the balancing act. So if we rolled this out to all members, we'd save 5,000 customers. And the way to place a value on that, for us, we said that's worth about $1 million. We took the 5,000 customers and we multiplied times the lifetime value of a customer. That's $100. And we multiplied it by 2. That was our word of mouth factor. And our theory was if somebody had a great experience, they would rave about it to a friend, and then we would bring those other folks into the system for free. So let's look at the cost of this. It costs $5 million to get the additional inventory to send you that new release DVD the next day in the mail. So how many, based on what you see, would launch this test to all? I can't talk anybody into it. Okay, and how many say don't do it? The math doesn't work. All right, that's what we chose to do. I occasionally will get some brave folks that will say, Gib, do it. And their argument is that word of mouth factor, too, isn't enough. Amazon will often use an 8x word of mouth factor. And if you do the math here, that would suggest that you do it. We just didn't have the money. But here I've been working to share with you this balancing act between delight and margin. All right, so you heard my story about how important it is to build hard-to-copy durable value in the era of Kevin O'Leary. So I have in my pocket $500 million for you to start a startup to compete with Netflix. What is hard to copy about what Netflix does that causes you to say no to my $500? What's hard to copy about Netflix? The user experience. What else? The content, the original content. Now that is a byproduct of something called economy of scale. They have 160 million members today. They can amortize those costs against a zillion members. They're going to spend $19 billion on content. Poor Amazon can only spend $4 billion, okay? I love saying that, poor Amazon. No one's ever said that before. What else is hard to copy? The brand. You guys trust Netflix. Each and every month it's hitting your credit card. And I heard the customization, which is a unique technology, and that's personalization. There's one last thing that's wicked hard to copy about Netflix. What is it? That's an economy of scale. Keep going. The network effect. Every device in the world is magically streamed to let you play Netflix. It's an amazing network effect. It took us a long time to get there. So in the work that I do, these typically are the 4 hard-to-copy advantages. And you see how those ideas came to life at Netflix. And this was a key lesson for me. Delight customers, but also do the hard copy work. And then, of course, work to make the money so you can reinvest to build a better product. So this consumer science is all about experimentation. So here are 8 major theories and hypotheses about how to delight customers in hard-to-copy margin-enhancing ways. Look at the list carefully. Notice we said we're going to open up the APIs to let 1,000 flowers bloom. People will invent new ways of finding movies. We said we'll experiment with exclusive content. All of these ideas. And think for a moment, and you know it kind of worked out for Netflix. They must be pretty good. What percentage of time did they get it right? And the answer is initially only 3 of these high-level theories worked. And then as it turns out, the APIs were the thing that created this hard-to-copy network effect. And exclusives failed in 2009. But once we had the economy of scale and it was a streaming environment, how many of you have watched House of Cards? It worked by 2012. The world had changed. Now look on the bottom there. There was this one theory called friends and social. So if you were in Silicon Valley, 2005, 6, 7, 8, all the VCs were overwhelmed by the success of Facebook. And they'd say, Gib, what's your social strategy? What's your social strategy? You're going to create a network of friends on Netflix. They're going to connect with each other. They won't want to leave each other. And they will give great movie ideas to their friends. And this, I pounded on for 3 or 4 years. It's a failed theory. Why did friends fail at Netflix? There's 2 reasons. 1, your friends have sucky movie tastes, okay? Second, you don't want your friends to know that you were watching Cake Boss last night, okay? So this is a failed theory that worked exceptionally well for others, but certainly not for us. So if I want to look smart, these are the high-level theories and hypotheses, the product strategies that did succeed in delighting customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. And at any moment in time, we were focused on a set of projects or tactics against each of these strategies. And because retention is so hard to move, we had a variety of proxy metrics, ways to measure in real time if these ideas were working or not. And this is a set of proxy metrics that we use. In a minute, I'm going to show you more about these in a specific area of personalization. But for me, this is what good product strategy looks like. So I hope you understood the importance of this idea of delighting customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. So now I'm going to go on to talk about the story of personalization and how consumer science works, and how messy and dirty it is, and how hard it is to weed through the chaos to delight you. So when Reed talked about consumer science, really what he was saying was your job is to develop consumer insight through these 4 sources. Qualitative, that's focus groups and usability. Survey, I essentially did an NPS survey at the beginning here. The existing data, dig in the dirt for trends, theories and hypotheses that you're going to test in the future. And then the big dog at Netflix, the only way that we could do the balancing act between delight and margin was A/B testing. And what Reed was really talking about was the scientific method. Form a hypothesis, do the experiment, look at the data, and then apply human judgment to figure out what you want to do. So I'm going to share how this worked at Netflix in the area of personalization. This is what Netflix looked like in 2005. This was bad. So look at it. We're very aggressively merchandising new release titles that we can't get to you. That's bad. You see the failed experiment of Netflix First, our exclusive that failed. That's bad. I want you to look carefully at the tab called Recommendations. That was our petri dish. That's where we first began to experiment with personalization. And newsflash, if you're doing personalization, recommendations not a great way to talk to people. Talk in human terms. You don't recommend that somebody go on a date or have coffee with someone. You'd say, hey, I think you'll like this person. I think you might like meeting this person. So at the beginning, we said, what are our strategies for creating a more personalized experience? And these were the 4. We said explicit data, we're going to get all of your ratings. Implicit data, we said we knew streaming was coming, and we know that if you watch something for 5 or 10 minutes and then quit, that's an implicit signal that you don't like that movie. And then the idea was to get to know your movie tastes and know all the data about movies and magically connect the 2 via these matching algorithms. And there was one other theory. Our theory was over time, if the quality of the movies that you watch, as measured by their average ratings, went up and to the right, that you would stick with the service, you would retain better. So these were the 4 product strategies. And of course, we had projects or tactics against each. And I'm going to take you through each of these in a minute. And of course, we had proxy metrics to understand if each of these strategies was working or not. And again, I'm going to share how we applied these proxy metrics along the way. Now, you know this story, how it ends. Things have worked out quite well for Netflix, and I hope you understand that it's a personalized experience. But I'm going to give you a series of pop quizzes. And my theory is it's going to be hard for you today, and it was wicked hard in real time. So my first question is this. Our proxy metric for personalization, we would look and we would ask what percentage of members are willing to rate at least 50 movies in their first 6 weeks with the service. Our theory was you were rating a lot of movies because you valued what came back to you, these personalized choices. And I want you to notice that things have changed on the site. It no longer says recommendations, it says movies you'll heart, which my design team, they called the heart fugly, which is like a technical design term for funky plus ugly, I believe. Right? But you see, there's a little bit of advance in the thinking. All right, so think. I'll give you a big clue. This is a number between 0 and 100, right? And I want you to have a number in your head about what percent rated in the first 6 weeks at least 50 movies. So how many are 0 to 5 peeps? How many are 5 to 10 peeps? How many are 10 to 20 peeps? How many are 20 to 30 peeps? Oh, it's like we're down to 4 people. How many are 30 or above? The youthful enthusiasts in the row. I found one. I appreciate you. You want to know what the answer is? We got it up to 28%, right? And I'll share with you in a moment how we got there. I want you to notice a little detail as well. Around 2010, that metric started dropping. Why? Because of streaming. That getting your rating was no longer important because we had the implicit signal. So how did we do this? We had something called the ratings wizard. If you clicked on the movies you'll heart tab, it said the more you rate, the better we'll do at finding movies you'll love. And people went on ratings jags. They would rate tons of movies. And this is how we got billions of pieces of taste data about your wonderfully arcane movie tastes. So I have a second question for you. And now I'm introducing my family. It's Kristen, she's 56. Kelsey is 24. Brittany is 22. I am the awkward 57-year-old white dude here. And the question is it helpful to Netflix to predict your movie taste by understanding your age and gender? And this is a yes-no question. So how many answer yes, it is helpful? And how many say no, it is not? So the yeses overwhelm the no's a little bit. And the answer, it's not helpful. You have an amazingly unique movie taste. And understanding your age and gender gives you almost no insight about what your movie tastes. And you can test this when you go home tonight. Create another profile. It's not going to ask your age and gender. Create it for a kid. It's just going to ask you for a rating, just a few movies to seed its machine learning system today. Now, how did we know if we were better or worse? Our proxy metric for this is called RMSE, root mean squared error. And it was measuring the delta between our prediction for you and how you actually rated it. So we predicted that you would like Breaking Bad 4 stars and Ozark 4 stars. And you gave it exactly 4 stars and 4 stars each. Just nod yes. I'm with you, Gib. Very good. Okay, that's perfect. Perfect guessing. And this is one of those metrics where good is down and to the right. We added the age and gender information, and it didn't improve RMSE. Really quite surprising, but you see the value of this proxy metric. The big dog in making this work is called collaborative filtering. And the way collaborative filtering works, we now know that you like Breaking Bad and Ozark, and you like Breaking Bad and Ozark, nod knowingly, and you also like Cake Boss. Just say yes. And that means that you will like Cake Boss too. And that's how collaborative filtering works with 160 million people. Now notice, that was kind of twisted and bizarre. Why would I like that makes no sense, right? Like Breaking Bad, Ozark, and Cake Boss, these things don't work together. But this was the algorithm of the day, and it really improved RMSE dramatically. Our little problem was we only had one engineer. Okay, that's hard. And so we outsourced it. We did something called the Netflix Prize. Does anyone remember the Netflix Prize? Cool. So we put it out there and we said, if anyone can improve RMSE by at least 10%, we will give you $1 million. And there's some insight just when you look at the leaderboard here about some of the things that we learned. So look at Team 4. Look at that team name. Opera Solutions and Vandelay United. Now, I know there's some Seinfeld fans on that team, right? But what's going on is, why did they have this weird and twisted name? What was going on was every year, if you were at the top of the list, we gave you a progress prize, $50,000. And the only people at the end that get the money is the leader. And if you were in second and third place, what they were doing was combining all their algorithms together, and that would boost them up the list. So one of the key insights was the more algorithms, the better. And we ended up paying the $1 million. Cool. It also was an amazing recruiting tactic. Engineers did not think Netflix was cool until we did this. It was amazingly helpful and inadvertent. So here's the question. We award the $1 million to Belcor's Pragmatic Chaos. And here's the question. We execute the algorithm, and then the question is, will it improve retention? So how many people are the youthful enthusiasts? The new algorithm will actually improve retention. Hands in the air. I love the youthful enthusiasts. And how many curmudgeons, deeply negative? It will not work, Gib. How many are you? Oh, this is nice. The youthful enthusiasts won out in this one. My youthful optimism. Unfortunately, it did not improve retention. So sad, right? But we had learned a bunch of stuff. recognized we knew that the more algorithms, the better. And so we invented something called the category interest algorithm. By the way, I'm always revealing my twisted, weird movie tastes. Look at the bottom row, and I'll tell you what was going on. So you remember Pandora? Pandora had the Music Genome Project. They had 50 musicologists tagging different songs. Jack Johnson is folksy acoustic guitar about surfing in California for awkward 57-year-old white dudes, okay? So that's what the musicologists did. And we did the same. We hired 50 movieologists down in LA, and they tagged all these movies based on these different characteristics. And we tested the algorithm, and it worked. So look at the bottom. Hey, Gib, because you liked Airplane, we think you'll like The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off in this category of movies, cult comedies from the 1980s. And this is all true. So finally, Netflix is able to give context for why you'll like something, which the collaborative filtering algorithm wasn't. And we were able to improve retention through these techniques based on a failed learning from the Netflix prize. Really quite remarkable. So I give you a fourth theory. And the theory was as follows. If over time we could improve the average rating of all the movies that you watched, you would have a better experience and you would retain better. And in fact, the average rating went up, but we saw no evidence that we were actually improving retention through this. And this was deeply puzzling to us, incredibly confusing. So we talked to customers. We went into focus groups and started talking about this issue. And we'd ask somebody a simple question like, what's a movie that you think is awesome? And they would say, Hotel Rwanda, 5-star. They would say Schindler's List, 5-star. They would say some documentary that makes them look smart. That's what they would say. But if you kept digging a little bit deeper, they'd finally reveal something quite different. And this got us thinking that star rating does not predict movie enjoyment. You were occasionally in the mood for a leave your brains at the door comedy. That's what you really love. These are the things that inspire retention. In fact, Paul Blart Mall Cop 1 was so freaking enjoyable that you had to have Mall Cop 2, right? So the key insight was that star rating was actually not that important. And that's like a total head scratcher. Now remember that punk company, Facebook? They grew up, they went international, and instead of that damn 5-star system, they had this simple gesture. Thumbs up, thumbs down. So we A/B test the 5-star, is it 3, is it 4, is it 5, against the thumbs up and thumbs down. And in A/B testing, the thumbs up wins. We got twice as much taste input from thumbs up as we did from the stars. We had collected 10 billion star ratings, and now the ratings are dead. So now what do you do? What do you do? So this is how it works today. For me, Mall Cop is a 93% match. Okay? I'm revealing, again, too much about my movie tastes. Okay? There's no assessment of the quality, just that it is a great movie for you, Gib. And that's where things have gone. Now, I've talked about delight, I've talked about hard to copy, and personalization, understanding the member taste of everybody in the world is amazing. But I want to point out what it does for the business, which is way cool. So Netflix predicted that 100 million people would watch Stranger Things. Who's with me? Pretty good prediction. And based on that insight, they said, okay, we're going to spend up to $500 million on that. They were able to predict, based on your movie tastes, how many people would watch it. And they're essentially right-sizing. They want to say yes to everything. They just want to make sure they invest the right amount of money. So they made another prediction, and this is, again, where I'm going to share too much, but I'm hoping that some of you are with me. They predicted that 10 million people would watch BoJack Horseman. Who's with me? Yeah, it's perfect, okay? And based on that, 50 million investment. And this is an incredible business advantage that Netflix has. They're able to predict who will watch and who will not, and they're able to, based on this, just get the right level of investment. They want to say yes to everything. Has anyone in the room watched an Everest Mountain documentary? Anybody? Yeah, there's like 6 of us. That's awesome, right? And so there's something for all of us, and that's the beauty of personalization. And this is how personalization has worked to delight customers and hard to copy, in this case, the margin-enhancing ways. All right, so I have a current case for you. It's a simple question. I'm going to show you how Netflix works today. It's quite simple. The brand is well known. You guys trust it. Netflix doesn't have to spend a lot of time saying what's going on. It just says, see what's next. Like maybe you can see some of the cool content in the back. And then it says, watch anywhere and cancel anytime. So believe it or not, there are some people out there that haven't used Netflix, and they're called fence sitters. And the way you bring a fence sitter over the fence, you say, it's okay, you can cancel anytime. And that's what's going on there. And then people click the red button, and I want you thinking for a moment, if 100 people visit this site, what percent are going to click on that button and hand over their credit card to start the 1-month free trial? And then the second thing I want you thinking about is what percent will continue at the end of the month, that 1 month free, into a paid service. So I want you thinking about that. So you got a lot of insight. I've told you about how important cancel anytime and canceling is for these fence sitters. There's a little problem. On day 32, day 33, people are calling in and saying, I forgot to cancel. Can you back me out? And Netflix does the right thing. They give them the money back, but it's costing the company $10 million a year handling these people who call in on day 32, 33. So Tom Willer is the product manager in this area. He says, okay, I can take care of that problem. I'm going to send a free trial reminder on day 27. I'm going to send a text. I'm going to send an email. The personalized homepage will say, hey, your free trial is about to end. And this is the A/B test of this concept called the free trial reminder. So now I want you to think about the data for a second. Does anybody want to guess what is the conversion? What percentage of folks click on red button, hand over their credit card? I want to hear some numbers. Okay, I heard 30, I heard 70, I heard 5. Any more numbers? 10. Okay, we'll go with 10. How many believe it's a number that's more than 10? And how many believe it's a number less than 10? Okay, the more than 10s have it, and the real number is 2%. 2%, surprisingly low to you. I know this. And I think they don't fully understand they have to hand over their credit card. And I think that's why the difference exists. It's been that number like forever. So the second question is, at the end of the free trial, what percent convert into paid? And it's between 0 and 100 once again. Let me hear some numbers. 40. Let's go with that number. How many people believe it's more than 40? How many people believe it's less than 40? Okay, that was almost 50-50, dead on. And the number is 90%. Wow. They're enjoying that service. All right. We're going to do this A/B test. We're going to put it out there like 1 million people, new members, and let them know on day 27. And let's look. Are you guys interested in the results of this test? Yeah. More enthusiasm, please. Shit, yes, Gib. As long as you don't speak your bad high school French, it's going to work out. All right, so here are the results. The only number we care about is that what happens to the 90%? How many believe it's going to change? We're going to see a change in customer behavior. We do. And the result is as follows. It drops from 90 to 85%. So congratulations, Tom Willer, Mr. Product Manager. You just lost the company $60 million. Okay? How do you feel right now? Right? You're the product manager. You lost $60 million. We're going to back out the $10 million because we're not doing that. So you only lost $50 million. Shit. Okay? All right, so how do we think about this in the DHM model? Your job is to delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. Is there delight in doing this? Give me a yes. How many believe yes, there's delight? Absolutely. This feels like a company that's doing the right thing. Do you remember AOL in the old days? Like it took 8 hours on the phone to cancel your service? This is making it wicked easy. This is good ethics. It's the right thing to do. And what's the hard-to-copy advantage that Netflix might build in doing this? What is it? There was only 4 choices. Trust. It is building trust, and trust is all about building an even stronger world-class brand. So in this case, Netflix is delighting customers. This is the potential. Building an even harder to copy margin-enhancing role in the world. And they're losing $50 million, right? Okay, so now you're Tom, like, what the hell do I do? Is this a high stakes or a low stakes decision? How many people believe this is a high stakes decision? Big deal, high stakes, hands high. How many people believe this is chicken shit, it's a low stakes decision? Wow. So Tom's assessment was it was low stakes. First, this is $50 million against $16 billion in revenue. So that's the magnitude. His second concept was this is totally reversible. If he gets it wrong, he can flip the switch the other way. I was nervous getting married, and my friend said, don't worry about it, Gib. If you get it wrong, you can always get divorced, right? It's reversible. I've been married 28 years. It's worked out. But this is the idea. And who makes this decision? Whose decision is this? Of course. It is not the CEO. It is not the CFO. This is the product manager's job. This is Tom Willerer's job. And I will tell you at Netflix, there was a fervent debate about this. This is chair throwing, right? People throwing chairs, fervent debate. We can't lose the $50 million. We should put it into original content for BoJack Horseman instead. I mean, this is the debate. Tom listens to all of this, and then he makes a decision. And then it's everyone's job in the company to line up against him, not second guess him. And this is called debate, decide, and do. Okay, so how many would launch this puppy? And how many say, no frickin' way? Okay, and there's a bunch of people in the middle. I love it. You're mainly launchers. And that is exactly what Tom chose to do. And here's the insight. If you have the money, and Netflix has the money, and you have opportunities to double down on delight, just do it. His second was this notion, most of us overthink our decisions because we believe every decision that we make is high stakes. But in fact, most of the decisions that we make are low stakes. Make a decision and go, and just live with it. And if you get it wrong, you can reverse it. And then his main thing was, gosh, it's only $50 million to do the right thing and to build an even stronger world-class brand. His hope was that you would hear about this and you would tell friends and more people would come into the system, which is something you can't measure in an A/B test. And the last, this gives you a teeny bit of insight about how culture of a company can affect decision-making. Netflix is way into this idea of debate, decide, and do. At Amazon, they call it disagree and commit. I was raised in a family where it was good fights make good marriages. My parents fought all the time, right? So this was his insight about why this was exactly the right thing to do. So there's one more thing that's required on these journeys, and that is patience. So I joke, it only takes 20 years to build a great startup, right? Look at Netflix. In the early days, I'm going with the market cap. It was worth close to $0 most of the time. And then slowly, with all this insight and learning and building these hard-to-copy advantages, today it's worth like $150 billion. But it takes time to get there. This is hard. All right, so I work with lots of different companies. And when I'm looking to understand if they're truly customer obsessed, I'm looking for 5 things. First, do they have access to the existing data? Do they have a strong data focus? And do they have data that describes customer value and shareholder value, the business? The second thing I look for is, do they have ways to get the voice of the customer in their head? Are they engaged in one-on-one usability focus groups? Think back to the Paul Blart Mall Cop deal. Do they have survey data? Are they asking people what they want, which is exactly what I did with an NPS at the beginning. And then, do you have some system for testing and learning? Can you A/B test? Because really, this is one of the only ways that you can understand the balancing act between delight and margin. And then the last thing I look for is, do you have a strategy? Do you have a set of theories and hypotheses for how you will delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways? So you saw that at the high level, the product strategy for Netflix, and then you saw it within the personalization swim lane, if you will. These are the 5 things that I look for to achieve this thing called customer obsession. For me, it means putting the customer at the center of everything you do to delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways to invent the future. And with that, I say thank you. Thank you very much. So this is my sort of awkward moment. I already warned you I'm a bit obsessive. I am, so I apologize in advance. But this is that awkward moment for me. So you've seen like street performers do their thing, and the crowd's lined up, and then the street performer does this incredibly stupid thing, which is they pass the hat. I'm passing the hat, so close the doors. I am not asking for money. I'm asking for your feedback. So pull out your phones. I know that you've been eager to use them anyways. And hold up your phone. You don't need a QR code reader. Just hold up the camera part. And for most of you, a link will magically pop up. And I'd love you, this is a net promoter score, so 0 sucks, 10 is awesome. Pick any number in between. But I'd love it if you do that, and I'd love it if you tell me one idea that was good about today's talk and one idea that would be better. So for me, I'm customer obsessed. This is my 351st survey result, and your feedback is incredibly helpful to me. Now, I know there's a few people that they're on Android Lollipop. It didn't quite work. So you can go to my baby website, Gibson.Biddle.com. I put the NPS survey for you at the top. I've also put the PDF of the document, so it's sitting and waiting for you. You can download it, you can read it, you can do it at the after party. No, do not read my PDF at the after party. I also wrote an article on customer obsession. It's quite different from my presentation, so I think that you will enjoy reading it. So with that, I'm truly here to say thank you. Thanks so much, Lisbon. Thanks, Andre. Thanks, Productized, for having me. And thanks, Renee. Thanks a ton.